Good morning, children. Today's lesson is meant for class 12. Prose, lesson number 1, the last lesson by Alphonse Daudet. Well, first of all, you would like to ask me, sir, what is the central idea of this story and what are the characters? Well, this story, the last lesson, is based on the fact that our identity is just because of our language. Our mother tongue makes it clear that we are having our identity. Neglecting one's language, it directly emphasizes the fact that we are going to lose our own identity. The same thing has happened in this lesson. The two protagonists of this story are M. Hamel, the French teacher, a very sincere and genial, teacher who is devoted to his long service, 40 years of dedicated service of teaching French to the children of Alsace and Lorraine. The schools of Alsace and Lorraine were having French as one of the languages. But, and the second protagonist of this story is Franz, a very honest schoolboy, very disciplined and honest schoolboy, who is often afraid of attending Mr. M. Hamel classes just because he was never prepared to, attend the class. He always spent his time outside, just seeing the beauty of nature, enjoying the bright sunshine, and watching the Prussian soldiers marching here and there. So this is now in this lesson, the beautiful thing that has happened is that so long as you know Franz started going to school, very he that day he went very late to school. That morning he went late. The French teacher M. Hamel had announced that he would, I mean, teach them participles, and therefore he had expected that they would come prepared with learning participles. But as you know, Franz was not at all prepared for that lesson, and he was afraid of getting scolded by his teacher M. Hamel, and that's the reason why he reached the school a little late in the morning. Yeah, it was a bright sunny day, and for a moment, Franz thought of running away. The scenery outside was beautiful. It was a bright sunshine outside, and the birds were chirping. He was tempted to spend his time outside, and therefore a thought came to his mind just to run away from there and not to attend the school. But anyhow, he overcame the temptation of running away and enjoying the time outside and reached the school. When he was going to school, he passed through the town hall. He saw a huge gathering of people at the town hall. He was surprised to see. Never before he had seen such a huge gathering. Then he just went near the bulletin board, and the people were talking about something. He just read out the notice. It was written that now the schools of Alsace and Lorraine would no more be taught French. It only German will be taught to the schools of Alsace and Lorraine. That was written on the bulletin board. Having read that, he rushed to the class. When he reached the class, he saw everything quiet. Usually, whenever he reached late, there was a commotion, there was a sound. The entire class was humming with commotion of the students, his classmates. But that day, it was absolutely quiet. Everybody was quiet. Mr. M. Hamel was wearing his ceremonial dress that generally he wore on the day, a special day, when there was something like a prize giving ceremony or any other annual day or any other function. But that day he was wearing his ceremonial dress, and he was holding his usual ruler in his hand. Franz was a bit, I mean, afraid. He just thought now he would be scolded. But contrary to what he anticipated, M. Hamel didn't at all bother about asking him why he was late. Rather, he asked him to sit down. And then what happened? That he was further surprised to see that the last benches were occupied by the villagers, included those who included the blacksmith, the carpenters, and all other people. So the last bench of the classroom was occupied by occupied by the villagers. Now, after that, what happened? That when he saw towards M. Hamel, he was further surprised that he was very quiet and calm, but he was very sincere and was speaking and trying to explain the things very calmly. French was further surprised to see that everybody was quiet and was listening without any disturbance. And M. Hamel was just walking up and down with his iron ruler under his arm. He had to open the door and reach his, front door. And so M. Hamel just indicated him to sit down, and he got seated there. He was further confused in that instead of a scolding, M. Hamel spoke very kindly to him. After that, French has just, calmed down. He noticed that M. Hamel was just in his ceremonial dress. Mr. M. Hamel, just announced that no more there will be French lesson in the schools of Alsace and Lorraine, because the order has come from Berlin that only German will be taught in the schools of Alsace and Lorraine. And he told the entire class that it was his last French class. Having heard all this, French was quite shocked. There was a, sign of, sadness on his face. He just remembered the gathering at the town hall. French was totally shocked by the sudden turn of events. He regretted not having learned the lessons given by M. Hamel, and now it was too late. He will never be able to learn them. He had wasted his precious time away from the class, engaging himself in some other pursuits like seeking birds' eggs, going, sliding on the Saar River, and so on. His books, which were a nuisance to him now, suddenly felt like treasure to him. Suddenly his perception got changed. His thoughts got changed. The thought that M. Hamel was going away from France, would never see him again, made him forget all about his cranky habits. Now he was looking towards M. Hamel very seriously. And M. Hamel announced also that this was his last lesson. While French was thinking of all this, he heard his name called out, and it was his turn to recite. That time, French was reciting it so correctly. Never before he had never, recited all these lines, and he was taking everything very seriously. Whatever M. Hamel was teaching, it was just grasped by French. It appeared as if, for the first time, French was getting everything easily. And he just blamed himself for not being serious and devoted for his own language. And even Mr. M. Hamel blamed himself, saying that he often sent the children to water his plants in the garden, and so he also held himself responsible. But he was very sad. He just highlighted, saying that French is the most beautiful language in the world, and neglecting one's language means losing one's identity. He wanted the people of France to treasure their language. According to him, whenever the people of a particular nation, get in self, it is only their language that makes them free and that gives them weapon to get freedom. Therefore, we should never lose our identity by losing our language. Rather, we should always learn our mother tongue or our language, our national language, so that we will never be lost in the world without identity. And so Aim Hamel opened the grammar book that day also. He taught the last lesson. Franz was amazed to see how well he understood everything. Never before he had understood anything in French, but that day he understood everything. Aim Hamel had brought new copies for them and that day, and everyone was interested in learning what he was teaching that day. And then he just stood up and wrote on the blackboard. What did he write in France? In French, "Vive la France! Long live France!" And after that, he said goodbye to everybody. This is how the story ends. And now, the central idea of this story is that we should always respect our own language. We should always regard our own language because that will keep our identity intact. In absence of our own language, now you see the story ends. Now there will be no French lesson, and M. Hamel will be leaving the school next day. Having heard all this, all the students were sad because now they will not be able to learn their own language, and so their parents were equally responsible. So the fact is that we should never neglect our own language, otherwise we will have to pay heavily or dearly for this kind of negligence. That is all about this lesson. Thank you. Thanks a lot.